Say again?
I like the little head behind you.
Oh yeah, it's cool. We got that in Texas. It's pretty
Makes
cool.
sense.
There was like a little shop and we found it. It's got like a
Uh,
bunch of different like our emotions and feelings and things about
oh,
people.
that's
Phrenology
cool.
head.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
pretty
It's
pretty
a
cool.
awesome.
phrenology head.
Yeah,
Yep,
exactly. Yep.
very cool. He looks very like his eyebrows go straight like this.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The bumps on your head allegedly would show what your personality traits were.
My
Oh.
question was always like, what happens if I thump you on the head? What happens
Oh.
then, right?
Oh.
Anyway, I digress.
If you
So
used that, you might have a theory. It's not accurate scientifically, but it is fun.
exactly. It is fun. Exactly. Your personality is fun. Okay, what's going on? I think Danielle's probably yeah, she's usually pretty early, so I'm gonna have some grace this time for her.
Okay.
Um, but as long as you're okay with it. I
Oh
love the posters in the background there. What do we got? We got
yeah, the I Call First was the first feature film, and then
mhm,
Downriver was the second, and then The Directive was my third, and then Rowcan was my fourth.
nice.
I haven't drawn one for Duffel Bag Boy though, so I don't have the fifth one up.
Gotcha. So you drew all those.
I
Oh
was say
yeah.
you did those.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Very nice.
Oh, I
Very
usually do
nice.
like concept art to get an idea of the movie.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you use it for like your like the drawing boards and things like that to concept
Oh
board,
yeah.
is that what it's called?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's the same concept.
same concept.
Yep.
So we'll have to like zoom in later and see if we can't get you to
Oh yeah.
Show them off. Yeah, we need
No,
to
the
show
art
and
is really
tell.
fantastic. Yeah,
Oh,
the art is
thanks.
fantastic.
Cat, no. No cat, no.
I'm surprised your cat doesn't go chasing the balls behind you in the corner there. Like,
They are on the ceiling and it's on milk crates hidden
Oh,
under the shawl so they can't
I
get
see.
there. They're not that brave. And I have three of them.
okay, she said it. Okay, so okay, we're gonna start, but hop in when you're ready. When ready. Okay, so what I'd like to start with is so when we say B movies,
Yeah.
a lot of people have their own kind of theory about it. So what I'd like for you to do, if you wouldn't mind, is tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do,
Okay.
your company, of course, and then let's hop right into what your definition of a B movie is.
Gosh, that's a great question. So I'm Alexander Ray Pimentel. I'm a feature length filmmaker. Um, the first word that everyone uses is like director, producer, or what do you do whenever I talk with people about it? And I kind
Yes.
of look at it as like I team lead the whole team uh,
Mm-hmm.
to like drive through the full vision to get the story put together as a movie. My company name is Future of Film Productions. I took it from someone I had served with. They
Mm-hmm.
used to back in the day when I was in the army, and I was like, I'm gonna be a film director. They used to like say FOF, you're the future of film.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, I honored it by just adding it onto the company name. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, I mean the an interesting idea around B movies is, you know, what qualifies as a B movie, or I think you're right, that opinion will change. You
Mm-hmm.
know, for me, a B movie is a budget movie. Like I
Yeah.
think the word budget I think is in there for me. Like when you're looking for grants or when you're trying to get investors, usually you're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say it's $100,000 film, I think it's kind of starting to blow up into where they think it's like an independent movie.
Okay.
I make movies for under $10,000. So,
Okay.
I think that's a budget movie. That's a B movie. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like it's like a shoestring budget is what you hear.
Yeah.
And it's putting the whole picture together for that amount of money and then getting it out to an audience. I think the key thing is for an audience to see your creative work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the end of the day, I think in film school we used to talk about like you don't make the movie just for you like just to watch yourself over and over again. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to learn how to get it out to a bunch of people. Yeah, I think that's the overall idea is telling stories and then bringing together a team to make the story, and then getting them out to as many people as possible.
Mm,
For me, it's under $10,000, but really, I think everyone starts to think of a budget movie under $100,000.
okay. So
Yeah.
what made you cap it at the $10,000 where you're like, that's where I want to stick under this? Is it just a challenge or is it just something that happened?
Gosh, I guess for me, it was an idea of like, what all do I need to actually do this?
Mm,
Where's the tipping point? And to bring everything together, props, wardrobe, getting the location, food, um, all kinds of different expenses. What for me, I guess experimenting with what was the tipping point for me of I feel like this is enough to make a film and get it out to people and they watch it and they have a good experience.
mm,
I think for me, I reached around like $10,000 and I put the whole thing together and I was like, all right, we screened them in theaters and
mm-hmm.
everyone had really intriguing reactions. And to me, that's the fun about film and
Right.
storytelling. And yeah, like I Call First was one of my favorite filmmakers. His name is John Cassavetes. And if you ever look at a picture of him, he's like holding the camera himself and he's got these like action shots of like filming the actors. And that was really what it was like. I kind of took on that same mentality of these people are going through these things and we're going to kind of make it feel a little bit like a documentary. And then
Yeah.
we screened it in a theater and everyone was like, why did the guy do that to the girl? And he's being immature, and his friends swayed him to do drugs, and he doesn't have a direction in life. And then I was like, yeah, this is good. These are things we should be talking about and thinking about.
Mm,
Maturity was, a big one for that movie. Then I realized once people enjoyed it and they took in the content, and they didn't feel like online, a B movie is a B movie. So online, you're still going to
yeah.
get it looks like you shot it on an iPhone, or, you know, they're probably coming to the movie because they're expecting Dwayne The Rock Johnson and, a couple $1 million and
Mm,
stream this on Netflix. But if you know that you're coming to a B movie or an independent movie, then we're not going to have all those things. But what we are going to have
mm-hmm.
is a story. We're probably going to be really creative with the way we tell the story. That's what I think a B movie filmmaker is all about. Is
Mm,
how can I get this information to you in a way that's not going to be necessarily easy for me, but it's creative and it's usually kind of clever in a sense when you find a sweet spot there with a small budget. So
yeah.
no matter what genre you're working on, horror, we've seen really good examples there,
Mm-hmm.
all the way up to I've seen all kinds of cool little B movies. They inspire me. I look at it like a one-shot comic. You ever like
Yeah.
you know when I was in the army, we all used to collect comics, and
Mm-hmm.
the hard part was if you have a favorite character, like mine's Daredevil. I
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of them, but to get the whole thing, like that's a life's journey in some cases to
Yes.
all these volumes. But
Yeah.
it's cool when you walk into a comic book store and you grab one off the shelf and it's a one shot. There's a story in there, beginning, middle, and
Mm-hmm.
end, and it's your favorite character or the character that you
Right.
were drawn to, basically. And
Yeah.
that's why I kind of look at like, B movies. Tubi is really, really great for that type of
Mm,
entertainment because it's giving a lot of these storytellers a stage to express themselves and talk about what interests you. We talk about how do you stand out and things like that. I think what makes
mm,
you unique is you and whatever you like. If you're talking about those things, people are they're going to be attracted to that idea and have opinions and
mm-hmm.
ideas about your idea. And
Yeah.
that to me, I think is what filmmaking is all about, is expressing ourselves and talking about the world. Oh,
Yes.
we got a
Go ahead,
hand up.
Pixie. Yeah.
Are your films available on Tubi?
Oh yeah. So all the films that you see now on the walls, I Call First, Downriver, The Directive, Rattle Can, and Duffel Bag Boy, Amazon Prime Video, Tubi, cable. Cable's been pretty big for my business and getting it rolling,
Nice.
especially
Mm-hmm.
for Downriver.
Mm-hmm.
Really got the ball rolling for things that that have been happening recently. So
Yeah. So you mentioned that you mentioned horror, right? And so
oh,
we do deal with a lot of horror guests and a lot of horror cast, I guess is what you would call our players here. But what is a genre that you feel like you're most comfortable in? And I know that Pixie is like, get me links for these because she for these movies that you're talking about because we love indie, we love the B movies and stuff like that. But for you, what genre do you fit yourself into, or do you try to just let it go and whatever it is, it is?
Okay, yeah. I mean, for me, I think they come down to a couple type of styles of movies. Like, for me, it's like sci-fi is really big for
Hmm.
me. I grew up really liking science fiction, and at 5 years old, I won an award for painting, and it was like out in outer space. So
Hmm.
science fiction in any regard has always been really cool to me, and I'm drawn to it. And then also like very contemporary stories. Contemporary in the sense of like, yeah, I Call First is just about a young man trying to find his place in the world and understand all
Hmm.
the different influences around him. Feels more like a documentary. Rattle Can is like a graffiti artist he's kind of like Banksy. He like hides and makes art, and just expressing himself. So it's just kind of like these very contemporary. Almost feels like you could meet these people,
Yeah,
walking
yeah.
down the street. Um,
Realism,
yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Even
cinema
Duffel Bag
verite.
Boy. Oh yeah,
Hmm.
like Duffel Bag Boy. He's a homeless veteran, and he comes across this kingpin who owns a criminal empire. And he's kind of like
Hmm.
he could be your buddy, and he just stumbled upon this world, and those kind of contemporary type style stories is what I'm drawn to.
Hmm.
Kind of like anti-hero. They're very real in the sense that like they're people.
Yeah.
They annoy you, but you love them. The
Hmm.
You want them to win. They frustrate you. When they make a
Hmm.
mistake, they let you down.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
That's a really good explanation right there. I wish I would have used that.
yeah.
I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah.
steal it going forward. Yeah.
Right.
We did our
And
whole last issue of the magazine on anti-hero versus villain. So
oh
perfect. Yeah.
yeah. Anti-hero is a really cool way. It gives you a big spectrum of people. We're not perfect, and
Yeah.
we're messy, smelly, loud. We get stuck in our ways. We
Hmm.
learn lessons the hard way,
Oh
and
yes.
to me, when that's the character and that's what's on the
Hmm.
page, and all of a sudden the actors are there, and we have everyone's wearing everything, and they become the characters, and we're kind of playing with it. Gosh,
Hmm.
that to me, there's the magic.
Right.
It went from an idea to now a bunch of other people who are owning the idea, and
Hmm.
they're representing it in ways that they have feelings for, that they have heart towards in terms of what this person is going through or these people in this scenario. And then to me, like that's the magic of cinema. It explodes,
Right.
you become real. Uh, um,
Hmm.
like for example, The Directive, uh, it was my movie got on Hulu between 2019 and 2020. And
Hmm.
gosh, it blew up online, and I'm reading a bunch of people, and they're like, he's a doofus. And I got there for a while. I'm like, Dylan kind of is a doofus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole point of it. He's a doofus stuck in a post-apocalyptic world. He wants entertainment and McDonald's, but it's not there anymore. And
Right.
on the flip side of that in cinema, usually it's Will Smith. He's a major in the army. He's at a locker of
Yes.
weapons and a German
Everything's a
Shepherd.
headshot.
Yes,
Overqualified.
yes. And I'm like, gosh, I'm definitely not going to be that person in the middle of this situation. So then what
Yeah.
is it like for me when I am messy, smelly, I have my bad habits, I'm lazy, you know.
Hmm.
I think it was fun to explore that character in an
Yeah.
apocalypse. So yeah, so that's how I look at the stories in each character. I think no matter if it's sci-fi or more contemporary or art driven, I think the
Hmm.
characters are just kind of like people that we can relate to.
Hmm.
I think sometimes that might turn my viewers off in the sense of like, this sometimes feels like a documentary,
Hmm.
or it's too realistic. Where's
Too
the
real. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. But I think that that's kind of cool. I think that, when I read reviews that afterwards are first of all, to me, if you got off watching the movie and you went on to online to say something,
Hmm.
you
Good or bad.
something
Yeah.
something impacted you, right? You
Hmm.
want to talk about it. You're like, I have these feelings about this thing that I experienced. And to me, like that's the magic of cinema and getting to
Yeah.
express. Yeah.
Right. So one of the things I really want to go into with this is the acting, right? Because a lot of people think cheap B, which I don't
Yeah.
think is the same, right? I think we have B movies and then we have kind of like cheap B movies. And I think cheap B kind of fell into like a sister of like trauma and things like that, where it kind of was silly. But I feel like
Yes.
sometimes with B movies, your acting is actually better because there's no this and that to distract you. You really have to get into characters. So
Right.
how do you keep like the same actors like kind of like in a cast, or do you kind of look for more?
Gosh, that's really interesting when it talks about just the cast in general.
Hmm.
A big one that I often talk about is like I'm a leader, so I have to lead the team in a certain direction, and
Yeah.
I have this interesting idea where it's a whole sphere, and I cut it in half. And on one
Hmm.
side is the crew, which is like everyone kind of coming together on set to make the magic in terms of the technical side. Then you have the cast, and
Hmm.
they both have very different needs. I can't treat everybody in the same manner. So for
Hmm.
me with the cast, I kind of tend to write the movie from the very beginning of a little bit more from an understanding of what is it like to try to get my feet wet in the scenario, and then all of a sudden I'm ready to roll. So
Hmm.
usually our first shoot I pick is a really simple scene, like one of the least challenging scenes to film, because then they can kind of like they get on set and they're first everyone's nervous. We have to get into our groove. You have to understand the
Yeah.
team,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden after that first shoot, everyone starts to be like, all right, okay, yeah, he calls
Hmm.
action. And then, we're rolling in the sound, and I get to kind of play with these lines.
Hmm.
I'm not big on saying things a certain way with the actors. I'm
Hmm.
more big on the beats. So I like to say like it's more vision than it is details. The
Hmm.
whole vision is so and so has to go home and get into an argument with their wife or spouse, and and then leave. That's the conflict in the scene.
Hmm.
How they get there, or how they choose to interact, I think is I'm kind of giving away that ownership. They should
Hmm.
put that on as actors and then start
Hmm.
to play and say, or I'll talk about things like setting them up for success. Like what was your moment before? What were you
Yeah.
doing before the scene? And then there's kind of like these techniques that you can utilize with building an idea around what's going on. And then I think
Hmm.
that the actors, when I work with them, they just kind of put themselves in the shoes and they'll give me feedback like, well, I don't know if necessarily they'll be feeling this way, or I
Yeah.
let me say it like this. I'm feeling this. And then they'll try it. They'll play with it. And
Mm.
usually what they start to mess around with and create on set is way better than what I could have written on the page and said, read it like that. Just
Sure. Yeah.
hit your
Yeah.
mark and say your line. And I think that giving them some of that freedom allows them to just kind of explore and
Right.
find the character themselves instead
Right.
of being
Go ahead,
told,
Pixie.
you know.
So a lot of your movies, there's a lot of ad lib and impromptu
Oh,
based on what the actors are bringing to the character.
yes.
And it's literally, you just give them often guidelines and
Yeah.
let them, so it's a collaborative, cooperative project.
Yes.
Mm.
That's very
That's
important.
awesome.
That's very unique.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I
Okay.
To this is a scene, and to allow the
Mm.
actors, that makes them very different than majority of actors in independent film, where there is a script and these are your marks like on the floor, whereas you actually are giving your actors the opportunity to create and craft story with you.
Hmm.
yes.
You're more
And I
of a
think
partner.
it gives them a lot of trust. Like it's a lot
Oh,
of pressure, right? But I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
trust that you are creating this character and that I trust you to give me the vibe and the chemistry that I'm looking for in order to create the scene that I need. So that's a pretty interesting way of taking it. Can you talk about your process, like how you're going in, like you said you write from the beginning to the end, but like, and you're also the person who puts together the concept art and things like that. Do you think the concept art, and do you show it to your actors, like the concept art, like here's where I'm going with this, here's the scene, like we're going from A to B, this is what I'm looking for. Do you think all those things and your process helps you out? And like I said, can you go into your process a little bit?
oh yeah. So yeah, these are good questions. I think we're also kind of talking about the other half of the circle, the crew.
Hmm.
Usually, I kind of look at them as like team leads. I also have a huge background in managing in retail. So
Okay.
when I'm a retail manager, I have to give these projects, or
So you got the squirrels. Gotcha.
yeah, exactly. So then when I bring everyone together, I have these certain team leads and I think it's kind of fun because it's not really exactly what Hollywood said cinema has to be when you're
Hmm.
making a set. because I kind of look at like whoever's running camera. I look at it as media capture. That's what I call it, and that's we're talking about sound, audio, lighting, any of that technical aspects in that regard. And
Mm,
that there should be one person over that, which is how I usually like to have it. Then
mm,
someone over design, which I think is like wardrobe, costumes, set dressings, props, and we collaborate. And yeah, I'll come with some of my art or music, even with like the composer. And I'm like, this
mm-hmm,
music made me feel like this was what the movie is. And then
mm-hmm,
once again, just kind of like the actors, they'll collaborate and they'll be like, oh, what I like out of this music is I can feel this, or I can understand that you're trying to get this vibe into the scene.
mm,
And then they'll add their art in there and say, well, with the wardrobe, we can tweak this, or with the prop, we can maybe my prop is in my head, I had it one way, but they bring up a
mm-hmm.
similar idea with a prop that's maybe even cheaper and less expensive, but more effective.
Yeah.
And that to me is a good part of the collaborative process. Um, a big part for me is I have to be really prepared. I
Yes.
have to have all my pre-production done. I have to know props, who's going to be there, food. Almost very similar to like being a retail store manager. I,
Sure.
I have to come up with a plan and I have to say, let me set the stage and you guys make it happen within that stage.
Mm.
And sometimes there's challenges, like in Duffel Bag Boy, it started raining really hard, and we weren't really,
Oh.
yeah, we weren't ready for it. We
Mm.
waited it out as long as we could, and it got lighter, and we just had to come up with creative ways of still shooting the scene. And
Yeah.
uh, I think that that's, being prepared will prepare you to run into some problems and say, this may not be what it is on paper, but we need to be creative because we know the goal as a team,
Mm-hmm.
and then everyone kind of comes together to try and find solutions and make it happen, make the scene come to life.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Donnell, you had a question?
Sorry I am late, but all of a sudden it was like technical bit just hit my house. Um, so I missed like the beginning, and if I repeat anything, I do apologize, but be patient. I do know um, what I wanted to know, I should say, is because of the collaborative effort and you've got your team, do you think that also gives them everybody a sense of ownership?
Oh, absolutely.
Where they aren't just a cog in the wheel. They aren't, just, "Oh, yeah, I was in that." It's, "Oh, yeah, I was in it." I got to
Mm.
play a major role in the creation from start to finish, like, so that sense of ownership.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Very much so in the sense that, little things, every single team that I've brought together to make a movie, we have like our jokes on set or uh, you know,
Yeah.
to me, I think a lot of the leadership comes from being in retail. It kind of reminds me of like a store. You
Mm-hmm.
one's
Mhm.
quirks and where you tease everybody and fun things happen on set. But at the same time, like they own that we're the team doing this. I
Mhm.
have my piece, my part to play. I get to see all these people that I get to be happy to be around. That's we're making something. I really look at it like a lot like when I first moved to Colorado, I did a Halloween play with 10 to 17-year-olds. And I approached it in the same manner I do with filmmaking, in the sense that I kind of like some lines or some things I'd throw away, and I could tell that the kids weren't necessarily, the prior instructor was like, say what's on the script. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
have some fun with it up there. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, one of the kids comes in and throws his hat across the stage, and yeah, yeah, and
Yes.
the
You never know
family.
what'll work.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
and the families had a really interesting experience watching them watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, kind of like my movies. It was a little unusual. They come out and they're kind of blocking the scene the way they'd feel like, and
Yeah.
they'd be in the moment, so they'd feel something and they'd go with it. And
Yeah.
I felt that big sense of it was fun. It was a team. It was exciting. We're all going to come together to bring it together. And yeah,
Mm.
every single team that I've had has had that impact, to the
Mhm.
point where they all kind of become a little bit like a family in the sense that
Yeah.
I
they're,
was going to ask that if
yeah.
it
Mm-hmm.
gets
Yeah.
that family feel.
Yeah, it does. You're right. And
Okay.
some of them I can see through the years now. This is my 16th year filmmaking, that they've come together on their own and created their own little friendships and their own little
Right.
film.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Nice.
I was going to say too, I feel like when you do something like that, like you allow people, and this goes to like the description of your company, right? And because this is something that I was going to ask you, a lot of people say, "Oh, we are outside of the box," but at some point, everybody's in their own box, right? So, but
Mhm.
when you're saying the way that you're talking, I think it's a true description. So I think it's fantastic that, each movie sort of has this freedom for people to actually get out of the box, because like you said, when they're outside of the script, they're unscripted, they're improvising, so they really have to become and really think about where they're going to move and how they're going to interact with people on the stage or screen or whatever they're doing, and to allow them that freedom to really blossom. Because most of the time they're like, you are a 16-year-old and you're going to come over here and you're going to say this to this person. And then that person, this is how he would really react. And then so you're kind of just like, okay, you're just reading a script and you're going over and you're doing exactly what he tells you. But if you give them the freedom like you do to say, the kid's 16, I just want him to get to this point where him and his parents get into an argument and then he takes off. He can think of anything that he can totally tap into, right? A very personal, very real experience that he can tap into. And I feel like that is the epitome of outside the box. So, I mean, that's kudos. That's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks. Yeah, I really enjoy it. It's my favorite part is getting when they're all there and they're doing their thing, you know.
Yeah. They're in that
I'm
mode.
usually
Yeah.
stressed out beyond belief. I've got all my papers and I'm like, we're on shot 15. Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
freaking out. I'm like 5 Red Bulls in, and they're like, don't drink the sixth one, and I'm drinking the sixth one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we got 15 shots and the sun's going down, and everyone's like, calm down. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
The
exactly.
wings are on fire.
exactly.
Yeah.
But then you create this little environment, and they all kind of once you fully communicated, those are my big pillars. Is for me, it's communication, empathy, process, and accountability.
Hmm.
And communication is the key part. We get there, we all need to know what in the world is going on.
Right.
Then once everyone kind of has a good idea of what's happening, then it's really they're gonna just go do the process. And yeah, sometimes you have to maybe not so much like how you have to do in retail for accountability, but
Hmm.
accountability in the sense of like here's some things that have to happen today, or else we're walking away with maybe a good time, but really no scene, you know,
Right. Right.
Mhm.
or
Hmm.
a couple of scenes, and
Yeah.
but then everyone can understand that we want to show something, we want to walk away with something.
Right.
So then once everyone's focused on the goal, it's exactly what you described. They're
Yeah.
playing around. They're like if something was there and it didn't make it into the scene, I've kind of learned to let things go. You
Yeah.
know, some filmmakers are big, like there was supposed to be a red lollipop in the left hand. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're like, where did it go? Why is it not there?
Hmm.
I've been on those sets with those filmmakers in film school and stuff, and I don't gravitate towards that type of leadership style.
Yeah.
That if it didn't make it in the movie, then maybe whatever I put on the page, it didn't resonate.
Sure.
We didn't chew on it in a sense that made
Okay. Yeah.
right,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and it gets left on the cutting room floor at that point.
And I feel like at this point, I think it sort of leads to more of your military career, where you're kind of like, you have different personalities that are coming in. You have this company, you have that one, and then you're moved out, and you have this one. So somebody's got to be, and you have a lot of accountability, right? So yes, we're gonna have fun. Yes, we're gonna do this, but at the end of the day, the task is complete. Whereas retail is sort of like, as long as we made our sales that day, right? Just
Oh,
make your sales that
Oh,
day,
my
and
question.
yeah.
oh, that's me.
So,
Oh, my
as soon as
question.
Oh, you
as
obviously
soon as you
got
get
it.
into retail, I've done retail for so long. So, I've done
I'm in it
management,
now.
I've
Oh
done
yeah.
the low end of it. And it's like, I feel like at the end of the day, it is a team player, but you are looking out after your own sales. Whereas this, I feel like, you have to sort of collaborate with the person standing next to you, or else you're gonna have a bunch of people just running into each other, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
having that sense of ownership, like Donnell was saying, having a sense of ownership means that, to me, and I kind of do this with the magazine as well, is this is yours and you should want to talk about it also,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. I
Mhm.
That's something I noticed in leadership in retail is just tell them to get the task done. But
Right.
the big piece there is empathy. And
Hmm.
when I'm on set, I'll go do it. I'm not going to just say we need to move 5 lights, and I'm going to go hold the iPad and walk around for a while, letting my
Yeah.
magic moment of the next shot. I'm
Yeah.
going to get in there and move all the lights with them. Try to plan what we're going to do next. So when you're with them and doing it, and another big one too is like learning how everyone takes appreciation from someone else.
Sure.
Like
Oh
what
yeah.
what what makes you feel seen? And when you start to learn your
Mm,
team, you know how to give them their good jobs in their way that they need.
sure.
And everyone needs that. Like
Yeah.
everyone needs to know, like, all right, I just did this take and I got all into it. Like, did it go well?
Right. Yeah. You're right.
Um,
They need to hear that. Yeah.
absolutely.
Do
Especially when they're outside of the box. Go ahead, Donnell.
do you think by doing that, not only do you have that sense of ownership, but that sense of a well, we already said like a family, but that your actors and your costume designers, that they all want to come to work the next day. I mean,
Oh,
it's
Mm.
it's not like, is it work or is it's playing around that I get paid to do? So that
yeah,
there's that excitement and they want to see each other and be
yeah,
around each other.
right.
They like each other.
Yeah. I,
Okay.
I hope for like a big spark like you're describing of like that feeling when I was in school when there was a theater going on, you're part of the theater program. Everyone's like, oh my
Mhm,
God, we're gonna open this huge play and all these people are gonna be sitting there watching us put this whole thing on. I feel like if everyone feels that way coming to set, like, oh my gosh, this is it. The camera's here, the lights are here. We've had all these talks over video calls and meetings and phone
Mhm.
calls about what they're wearing and why and all these different things. And now everyone has come together with all their different parts that they've worked on, and it's game day. Like this is
Yeah.
it's going down. Yes, you're right. We can hit record and stop and record, and the audience kind of goes away and comes back. But it's
mhm,
still that same idea that we're here, the stage is live, and this is happening. And if they're excited to do that, gosh, the project's
Yeah.
gonna score more than anything.
Go ahead,
right.
Pixie.
More
So basically, you approach directing, as we're going to call it in the traditional sense, as basically being the crew chief.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what you're working on, there has to be a set of rules. Where if we're gonna go to the range in the army and we need to qualify on M16s, we all kind of know what we have to do. Like everyone has to qualify. If you don't qualify, people end up on the bad list, just like in the retail. They're the low performers. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
But we all get that that's how it is. But
Hmm.
in this sense, it's almost like, yeah, but what we're capturing is, I usually say it's like, to me, filmmaking, is like capturing light in a bottle. It's really hard to get that life,
Hmm.
that moment that you're looking for on set with everyone when it comes together. And you have to like try and capture it in the bottle, and you have to take it home and put it on the computer, and you get to cut it all together. And everyone knows that capturing that, trying to get that rare bit of life, we invented motion picture and sound together, and it's a
Hmm.
big invention. And that's basically what it is. We're capturing life, and that wasn't possible up until that moment. So it's kind
Hmm.
of almost kind of look at it in a sense like it's almost like it's unnatural to
Yeah.
do. So therefore, the rules
right.
are set against you.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have memories. You're not supposed to capture all this stuff and be like, I'm going to play it back
Yeah.
as many times as I like. So
Yeah.
now that we can do that, we all know that when we capture, we're trying to we want to get everything we can in that moment, get it in the
Hmm.
bottle, show everyone the magic that we caught.
Right.
That to me, I think gets everyone excited. Like that's exactly what we're here to
Mm.
do. Then kind of
Yeah.
like how everyone's describing what's everyone's excited about that. Then it comes less of like, like basic leadership of like you took an extra 5 minutes on your break. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, psh,
Yeah.
which nobody wants it to feel like that, and that's
Right.
what disassociates itself from feeling that way, like punching in, because we're there to
mhm.
it's really rare, um,
Mm.
really fun, for the most part.
Mm. So I love that and I'm like I said, I'm horrible when it comes to like instant recall, like people's names, but I did read somewhere that, like pictures are taking taking a memory from one moment in time and displacing it over and over again into different places. So you're stealing it from that scene, that moment, and that every picture is actually the perspective of the person who takes that picture, right? So what is it about your films that you hope that people take away as your signature?
Gosh, for me, I think it's a big thing about these characters are, we talked about it in the beginning, they're really human.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you gotta kind of let them be. Sometimes I feel like because of the way some very high, some what you would expect out of a movie, what a movie is like uplifting, or there's some good reason why, or something, which is
Hmm.
fine. Art, everything should exist under the umbrella of art. It shouldn't be one
Hmm.
style or the other, whether it's comedy or action or anything. But for me, it's you walk away and you're like, ah, it made me think about sides of life that maybe I didn't want to think about. Like when I make a mistake,
Hmm.
or I was judging the character when they were making the mistake. Sometimes I think it's funny when I get reviews like that about the movie, and I
Hmm.
think to myself, you ain't never made that mistake,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
and you're upset that the character did it in a movie.
Yeah.
And I think that that helps learn because we say, oh,
Hmm.
that's how I learned. I got in the army and it was almost like, like Band of Brothers. It's
Hmm.
the bigger brothers are like, here's some things you do and don't do. You
Right.
know? And you're like, why? And then
Right.
you'll make the mistake and
Yeah.
then they come back and they make fun of you for it. Like we try to
Right.
tell
And
you,
what did we learn? What did we
right.
learn?
I think
Yeah.
that that's a fun part of storytelling.
Yeah.
Why we sit around campfires and we'll talk about knowledge or funny things that have happened that have molded our ways of thinking, and
Hmm.
that's what I think happens. You watch the
Yeah.
movie, and I think that with my movies, you walk away and you're really considering what did these characters go through and how do I feel about that.
Yeah.
And either way, if you feel good about it or bad about it, I think that the movie did its job because now you're considering, and
Hmm.
the conversation's open. You know,
Yeah.
is with I call first. Is it okay to have your friends pull you down these roads that may not be very good for you because of peer pressure, and
Hmm.
you have to learn because you made a mistake because you let that happen. I think
Hmm.
it's okay to show a movie like that because then you think like, oh, how many times have my friends pushed me around on things or,
Hmm.
downriver. I mean, I was in the army and I made an anti-war film, which I think is kind of ironic. And it's a meditation on is war okay? And
Yeah.
Downriver really says the answer at the end of the movie is no.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's not okay for anybody involved.
Right.
And I think that that's important to walk away from. A really weird story to tell you guys. I had someone reach out to me with some really mean things that they had to say about me making a movie about the army. And
Wow.
I think they may have been intoxicated. And they
Hmm.
messaged back later. And I thought this was really interesting because I didn't say anything. I was kind of like, all right, I don't want to talk to this person.
Yeah.
They reached back like weeks later and they had meditated, I think, further on downriver. And they were like, I think that it was okay for you to talk about
Yeah.
subject like that. And I was
Yeah.
like, then I messaged back and I was like, I appreciate you giving me at least that, you know.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that person had a whole journey with Downriver.
Yeah.
And if that is what the art can do, and that's what a movie can do, and it can help you learn and look at life or consider things, then that's the whole purpose of art.
And he was thinking about that for weeks.
Yeah,
That
I know.
movie stayed in his head. You lived rent free in his brain for weeks
Oh my
until he
God.
finally came back and like not only did he think about you in that movie, he changed a way of thinking over
Yeah.
that. That's crazy.
Yes,
Good,
that was
Donnell.
very impactful. And I think that all the characters kind of have that feeling after you leave the movie. You're thinking through like my movies don't really have a definitive ending. I feel like it's just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
a snapshot of what they went through. And then they
Uh-huh.
go on after and there's stuff that happens before. But there's
Yeah.
that little snapshot and within it you kind of walk away going like, am I okay with what just happened? Am I mad at
Yeah.
them for it? Am I happy for some things that happened for them? Or it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So with this gentleman and learning something or creating an environment where people can think about something,
Yeah.
would you consider or do you think that by writing these stories and filming them and working with these actors and adjusting on the go and all the collaboration, is it like a form of therapy for you?
Gosh.
And do you think it could also help somebody be like, "Oh, shit, I get that. I can empathize with that, and they get help, or it helps them in a therapeutic way.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a quote that Steven Spielberg once said that really impacted me, just because it's really rare to meet somebody who just keeps doing it over and over and over again for a long time. So I
Right.
made from short films all the way to feature films. I've made so many of them. I kind of almost see my life looking back, and like there was periods when I was making the picture, and it was just like those seasons, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And yeah, that's exactly the whole point of that is I think that in those seasons I'm going through something that makes me get interested in that idea. Or
Mm-hmm.
later on I'll feel like I went through it and now we can talk about it. Sometimes when
Yeah.
you're in the middle of it, you don't want to talk about it. You know,
Yeah.
Right.
like for
But well, you
example,
are talking about it. You're just using a different way of talking about it.
exactly, yes. Like
Mm-hmm.
almost like Duffel Bag Boy. I grew
Mm-hmm.
up
Hmm.
I grew up on the streets and I grew up with some Hispanic gangsters. I'll just be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I was definitely going down the wrong road looking back now. But it's almost, a gang feels like a family. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you're hungry for family or acceptance, you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
then, the question of, well, now that you're empowered to be with this group of people to do something, usually, gang is like, we want to make money and be cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which
Hmm.
is the big aspects of being in a gang or in like a clique like that or something.
Yeah.
Mine too. So I had left that long ago, like after I joined the army, life completely changed. But looking back, going into Duffel Bag Boy, there's a lot of aspects about. I used to tell a story that one of my buddies, my family never knew, but he was one of the biggest sellers of crystal meth in our hometown.
Mm-hmm.
He used to pull up to the house and help my grandmother walk her groceries all the way to the door. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
and two very different ideas of the same person. You know,
Sure.
Hmm.
and I brought some of that to the set when we were talking about Duffel Bag Boys.
Yeah.
Like, yes, this is a crime organization. These people are criminals. But if we look at it that way, we're giving them a really skewed lens. To them, they're just
Mm-hmm.
living. I,
Yeah.
this is my group. These are my people. This is how we make money. These are things
Hmm.
that are normal around our lives. And that's coming back all those years later, talking about that same idea, and we were able to explore that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Not currently in that situation where, I'm debating on whether or not the street life is good for me and my,
Right.
but I totally agree. Like that is very therapeutic in a sense to say, let's look at the skewed aspect of crime and the American dream
Yep.
and
Hmm.
what that drives people to do in terms of criminal aspects or, gang related ideas. And
Absolutely.
and sometimes, that's the cool thing about the gangster genre. I usually do a director's statement at the beginning of each script so the crew can read like, here's my reason why. And
Yeah.
Right.
that was the whole part of Duffel Bag Boy is like you can look at some of these big criminal aspects and say, do I feel okay about that? But then at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, there's some people that we admire in our popular society of celebrities who do some of these
Mm-hmm.
bad things or have done, but we idolize them, you know?
Right.
So I think that that brings that idea of how do you really feel about these concepts? And you
Mm-hmm.
walk away kind of like how you're describing. This was we meditated on the idea and I have some feelings. And
Right.
Hmm.
that's what the audience member should walk away with.
Right.
And they could be totally opposite of me. They can be like, this guy's crazy. He should have never made this movie. And they should people shouldn't be in those situations. And I'm like, good. You know what? Go out there and tell those kids don't do that stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm now on
Okay.
your side instead of thinking against me. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So that I think
So,
that's good.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Um, on the tail end of that, because a lot of movies and certain types of movies are designed to make you think, make you learn, kind of find out, oh man, I'm really messed up, or wow, that resonates. But they also, certain like books and stuff and movies, can make people severely uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
How do you feel? I mean, what is your opinion on in the whole creative industry about trigger warnings? I mean, it's like the big hot button. Do we put a freaking label on a horror novel like by Stephen King?
Gosh, yeah.
This may trigger you.
Oh yeah. I that's interesting that you brought that up because I just watched the other night on the Golden Globes. He went up there and he was
Are
like,
people responsible for themselves?
"Yeah, for their own
Or as
views."
an artist, are you responsible for
Mhm.
them?
Gosh, wow. I mean, yeah, I'd have to start off with that idea that he went up there and said we should be able to that one Netflix show. We should be able to talk about dark topics. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it hit home for me because I noticed on a lot of my websites that my films come up as a dark comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, yeah, like it's
Those are our
dark.
favorites.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a great genre, but I think what we're talking about is like, what is our trigger point on dark subjects to be like, oh, well,
Sure.
yeah, you're not allowed to do that, or
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing is not tasteful. I think, I think that at some point we all have our ethical boundaries of things that we will or won't
Mhm.
think is an okay topic.
Yeah.
But
I think some
life
like,
is a big trigger.
huh?
Mhm.
Life can be a big giant trigger warning.
I
It's
know,
like,
yeah. I woke
There's
up, I
only
was right now.
one
Yeah.
birth.
The whole morning
right,
is gonna be
Yeah.
long. I'm gonna do this today. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
No
Right.
coffee in the coffee pot is a trigger. I'm sorry. So
Oh yeah. It's like, no, no creamer in my fridge. Uh,
Um, so I
shoot, now
have
I
a
left.
question though, because we touched on this in the beginning. So Donnell, all those posters in the back, he did those. As an artist,
Mhm.
right? So you're an artist not only with film, but you're an artist, obviously with art. We call it art, right? Well, the general public will call it art. But
Art, art,
visual art,
Visual
right?
art.
Well, I mean, movies are visual art too, but so art on
Anyway,
canvas, paper, drawing, right? Painting. For you, is there a difference between the two, or they sort of married together?
Gosh, yeah. I think somehow in the whole scope of the process, it's married together in the sense that what you remind me of is this really interesting. I had a teacher, his name was David Newman. I remember him very vividly. And he used to say, here's your vision, and here's what you get when you end
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to like do this as much as
Yeah.
to get your vision and what comes out as close as possible. I
Mm-hmm.
think
mhm,
maybe I've kind of like sometimes I think that can hinder my process because I'm uh, it goes into leadership too. You're trying to force the team to do something that's not natural. You're pushing
Mm-hmm.
some idea, and when you get stuck on it, sometimes you're not open to collaboration. You're not really
Mm-hmm.
hearing other people out, and you're missing other magical moments.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
So at first, I have like I draw these and then I'm like, this is what we want to see come to life. But sometimes it's totally different. The costume's way different.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most drastic would be the directive because we kind of had this first idea to puppet Sam with strings and PVC pipes. I grew up really liking Yoda and stuff, and
Yeah.
I got super passionate of like, yeah, we're gonna master puppetry. After yeah, after a couple of weeks, we were like, you know what?
Nah,
We
nah.
were like, we should
Like
rethink
maybe I'm the puppet. Maybe that's what happened.
Redirect, redirect.
it.
Yeah.
So
Those
yeah,
are
right.
absolutely phenomenal.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that the conceptualization of the film is the most exciting to me. I watch
Mhm.
heavy documentaries. That's another
Mm-hmm.
weird thing for me as a filmmaker. I'll study like my current movie now is about a gamer. So
Uh-huh.
I watched all these documentaries about pro gaming, and afterwards I was like, oh my, you're kind of
It's
mind blown by
insane. Yeah.
this whole world that you find out about.
Yeah.
Y'all are nuts.
With Duffel Bag Boy, I went down the whole road of like, what do we consider like drugs?
Mm-hmm.
And I watched this cool documentary that said wine and chocolate, which like to me, I would not have considered up front. But then when I think about it, I was like, wow. And it's funny,
Yeah.
Chocolate?
the props in Duffel Bag Boy of all the drugs, it's just
Mm-hmm.
powdered sugar and candy.
Yeah.
That's the whole prop. And they
Yeah.
were saying that like, chocolate and sugar and alcohol can be a drug too. So, doing all that studying really, I think, creates this idea of like, here's the soul of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then we've all been describing, I kind of hand that over and they all kind of look at that like, whoa, well, I'm going to add this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I do think that all encompassing all the art comes together and is kind of a big signature of who you are.
Yeah.
Even the music or
Mm-hmm.
that's your sign, that's what that whole
Mhm.
process is makes you
Yeah.
unique as an artist. So
Right.
yeah, I totally think that some of that, painting as a kid, drawing, sketch,
Hmm.
graphic design, music for me is really big. I'll get stuck on like a type of song or style that I think the scene should have, and I can't let it go. I'll be like,
Hmm.
no, I gotta find something that meets that idea for the montage or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, so all of that idea comes together and it makes, one style of film, I'd say. Yeah.
Right. So with that being said, what would be the legacy you want to leave behind with your work?
Gosh, yeah. I'd say, when I hear a lot of filmmakers talk, or especially those who want to be in film or want to tell stories, they're really caught on what everybody else thinks.
Hmm.
That really caught on it. And don't get me wrong, there's some good ideas in there, like how to get them engaged earlier in the film so that your
Sure.
artist is on board. I think those are like tricks of the trade, and you should probably take
Hmm.
notes and say, these are just things that work.
Right.
But in terms of like, I'm passionate about something, and for someone to be like, "Nah, that's not a very profitable idea." I
Hmm.
I would hope that these will stand in the way of that and say like, no, you want to talk about that, you should have the freedom to talk about that, because
Hmm.
kind of everything we've been touching on is the more conversation we have in the world, the better it is for everybody. We're
Yeah.
all talking about our ideas. We're all trying to figure it out. We're all
Hmm.
going through something in a particular time, and you'll never know
Mm.
when that will be. You know, I may right now I'm like I don't want any romance films, but yeah, gosh, 10 years from now I'm like, gosh, I'm in this period where I need some romantic films in my life, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna down 3 buckets of popcorn. I want some soda. I want
Hmm.
to cry a little bit, No, I'm just kidding. But
He's like, no, I'm just kidding.
It's okay. We
but
won't judge
no,
you. We won't judge you.
you go through
We
things and
listen and we don't judge.
you know, so
Wait a
you got to
minute.
go through it.
Alien was a romance, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
I mean, kind of. No.
Was kind
Depends
of.
how you look
It
at
was
it.
kind of. Yep.
It was between a
I mean,
woman and her cat.
oh, well, no,
Oh,
she did have a brief romance and he died, but I mean,
Yeah, well,
But
yeah.
the cat stayed.
Cat survived
that's
for a
right.
while.
But yeah,
Um,
I think leaving behind that idea of tell your story and don't
Yeah,
let people tell you
I
that you
love that.
can't talk about that
mm,
idea.
Yep, I love that.
So,
speak your truth. So
yeah.
speaking your truth, what is what type of music resonates with you the most?
Oh yeah, gosh. I like a whole playlist on my Apple Music, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of different things. I really like all kinds of music.
Yeah.
I, I'm a really weird person when it comes to music. I can go straight up like because of my whole lifetime in the streets. I'm
Mhm.
I'm bumping 50 Cent, and I'm a gangster right now. You know,
Ah,
I'm the biggest baddest dude on the street. I'm getting
Yeah,
ready for an interview. I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
right, all the way to
Murder
whatever,
Inc.
right?
Let's go.
Taylor
Exactly. Yeah.
Swift? Are you a Swiftie? Are you a closet
I'll,
Swiftie?
I'll listen to some Taylor Swift. I'm not mad at Taylor Swift. Also
Lamar or
Justin Bieber.
Drake?
Justin Bieber made a full circle for me. I'll listen to it all the time.
Ah,
Lamar or Drake?
Yeah, when I write, I'll listen to classical music like
Uh,
Mozart
yes.
or Mahler or
mhm,
Bach.
Vivaldi? Four
Yeah, there
Seasons?
we go. Exactly.
mhm.
Yes. And then I'm like writing, and I'm like in these moments in the movie, and I also have a hard time writing when there's singing. I can't like
Yes.
Oh,
be a
yeah. I can't
dialogue.
Yes.
have words.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then I'm like, I don't
Cannot
want
have
to.
words.
Yeah, they're saying something, and I'm trying to say something with a character right
Yeah.
now. So yeah, then
Yes.
my brain, the wires start to cross,
Yeah.
and then I have
No, I start listening to the song instead. I'm like, oh
yes.
yeah.
No, my
And I
character
start
starts singing the song, and I'm like, damn it.
Potentially my actors
squirrels
start
are having
reading,
a party.
huh?
It's like my squirrels get to have a party then. It's like,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
no. Mm-mm.
Some actors are reading 3 pages of Taylor Swift.
Lyrics?
Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah, so I can listen to a full array of music, even like to me, the like extreme extremes in some genres, I can't go too far, but I
mhm,
can listen to almost any genre.
yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Pixie, what was your question? I wanna know the answer to your question.
Uh-oh.
Uh, I,
She forgot.
Lamar or
yeah,
Drake?
Oh, yeah, that
yeah,
was it.
Lamar or Drake?
Great.
Okay. Okay.
It was an important question. We had to go
It
I'll
there.
was-
forgive
Well,
you.
yeah.
I'll forgive you.
Well, there's another important question. Boxers or briefs?
Everybody asked that one. The boxers
I
or
never
briefs?
asked that.
Yeah,
You don't
I'm always
have
afraid. I'm always afraid of that answer. So don't answer that. That one goes way.
Commando. He was in the
Yeah,
army.
yeah, exactly. It
Oh
goes
my God.
way over there. He's
Oh,
like, who am interviewing me here?
Ooh,
So
getting a little spicy.
so when we talked about briefly, when you're like, hey, some people will say, hey, I'm new to filmmaking, I'm new to this. If you were to give yourself advice, right? So if you knew what you knew now, and you know, you were to give yourself advice to make this just that much easier, what would that one piece of advice be?
Gosh, I struggle the most with patience,
Hmm.
even to this day.
With
And I
what?
think that if I could go back to younger Alexander and be like, don't worry so much about whether or not, because here's the other thing too that I learned about the industry is it changes so much. But
Yeah.
I was like, gosh, I just want to, make it or whatever that
Hmm.
means. I think when I was younger, I was really caught up on that. What does that mean? When am I making?
Hmm.
If I would have just focused on just practice your art form,
Hmm.
and everything else comes after that. And
Sure.
I've got that for the most part now. Like I know that to me, I have a funny catchphrase. I know this will sound mean, but I think there's a lot of people that they're like film talkers. They like to
Hmm.
talk about, if I had a script pop off, I don't know if you guys have that relative or that friend that's always like,
Hmm.
here's your $1 million movie right now.
Yes, yes,
To me, I think
yes. As an
they're
author, I
film.
get this all the time. You should write this book for me. And I'm like,
Yes.
Say what?
Yeah, right, exactly. So
yeah,
it's
Are you
like
high?
yeah, film talker, but for me it's a filmmaker. It's the action of making films.
right.
And you've got to be out there and just working the craft.
Mm,
Because all these things that we're talking about now about how I work with the cast and crew, that had to be learned over time. I
sure.
wouldn't have
Mhm.
rolled up onto a set and threw the hat on and been like, all right,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
If
do
it was only
this.
that easy, right? If it was only
Yes.
that
Yeah.
easy.
So I
So
think
we talked about real quickly, we talked about the $10,000 budget that you try to give yourself each time. I want to know, what is the craziest thing that you did for under that budget? Like, was there a prop? Was there something that was just, it's like,
yes.
there's no way I can do this for $10,000, and then you did it. What is it?
gosh, I have a good one. So
Okay.
to me, making the directive, my favorite character is Sam, the robot.
Hmm. Okay.
Mhm.
And I kind of talked a little bit about the puppetry. To me, the huge challenge as a filmmaker was, can I make something that makes you believe that Sam's a character the whole movie? And I can't, there's not really maybe very few comments about the robot being a toy that we got at a toy store,
Hmm.
right? And we built
Yeah.
Mhm.
stuff around it, but we used its automated, it's a kid's toy.
Hmm.
And to me, I think it was crazy that because we made that movie for $1,300, the whole movie, the whole thing,
Wow.
and it got on Hulu. Everyone
What?
was like, like
Yeah.
how did that go down? And I think the craziest thing was convincing everyone that this toy robot was having this really in-depth relationship with this doofus kid going across the U.S. trying to find his
Yeah.
friend,
Hmm.
you know? And to me, I think that's to have. I even had a buddy in the army who was like, "Yeah, my kid's got that robot in his toy box."
Be like, good. Can I use it as a backup?
Like I might need it.
Thanks for your investment.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Like woo.
exactly. So I think that was the craziest thing, and I think we're laughing now because I think I'm laughing now because it was a success. But there was
Sure.
a lot of doubt from the crew going into it. Like this,
Yeah.
this dude has a toy robot, and
Hmm.
and Dylan's supposed to have this whole journey with this character.
Hmm.
But when you watch it, especially if you watch it from Sam's perspective, to me, I think it's extremely impactful that
Yeah.
it's not even an actor. There's really no one behind. It's just a moving thing, and you're there. When they're mad at each other, you're like they're mad at each other, and you
Yeah.
have opinions. Sometimes you're with the robot, sometimes you're with Dylan, and
Hmm.
that to me, I think that's movie magic. You know,
Yes.
I heard
Yeah.
this interesting story at New York Film Academy that Spielberg sent his kids there. And if anyone's watched The Fablemans, that trick where they kick the stick and the dirt goes up for the shots for the war film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I heard one of the kids was like, "Well, I want this crane in here," and the school was like, "What?" So then they called Spielberg, and Spielberg got him on the phone and was like, "Until you can make a movie with a pencil, a piece of paper, and a paper clip, you're not a filmmaker."
Yeah.
So I think that was a testament to it's a $200 toy robot. We dressed it up. We gave it a bunch of lines that we wrote, and we had the actor bounce off of that.
Yeah.
That's movie magic for sure, and to believe the character. So
Right.
for that amount of money, I think that's probably the craziest thing we've
That's
pulled off.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an incredible suspension of disbelief.
Exactly.
$200, but it's a three-dimensional, fully developed character on a trajectory through a plot line. I mean, on a $200 budget, that level of suspension of disbelief is
Hmm.
that's a miracle. So mad props.
Yeah.
Mad
Yeah,
props,
definitely.
Yeah.
Alexander.
Oh yeah.
And to the
That
actor too, because the actor is like, like when I sit there and I watch, like, movie making, and they're,
Green
nowadays
screen.
everything is green screen. And
That's it.
I don't know, like for me, I'm old school. I really like, and this is why I wanted to interview you, is because the getting your hands into the movie, right? The props and
oh, yeah.
creating this world, whether it's a little mini model set, or whether it's, somebody dressing up, if it's a midget in a Ewok costume or whatever it is, you are creating that belief,
That
because I think it brings us back to childhood, when the imagination was there and we could turn anything up, box into a spaceship, or, our chopsticks into guns and things like that. So to me, that is the magic,
10x.
is saying, yeah, it is the magic itself, rather than being like, okay, well, we're gonna be lazy, because I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this. I don't care. I do think it is lazy to spend, millions of dollars on this CGI. There's no suspension of belief. There's no, you're, I don't know. To me, the
the
imagination,
wonder.
yeah,
Yeah.
the wonder and the
How
childlike
did they make that
awe.
work?
Yeah, the
Yes.
childlike awe, and also connection, because to me, that's what art is a connection. So I don't feel empathy for a CGI dragon like I would, like, something that's animatronic or something, because to me, that seems a little bit more tangible, real.
Right.
But again, that's me. That's how I grew up. And so, but to focus in on the point here, is art, no matter what the art is connection. So for you, when you're doing your art, and art to me is more than five senses, right? It goes beyond that. But how do you make sure that you are, like, they can smell it, they can see it, they can hear it? What is it that you do, to
Taste it.
to make sure that that's there?
Yeah, I think I there's this really cool book that this I can't I'm bad at name recall as well. But this gentleman he wrote a book called Intent to Live, and he
Hmm.
had trained Leonardo DiCaprio for acting. I want
Hmm.
to say it's right before Gangs of New York, and in there he has this like it's like a spine and ribs, and he says that's how the story it should feel as its arc, and then the ribs are all the scenes, and he has
Hmm.
breakdowns. And for me, to me, I've always used those breakdowns and give them to the actor, which is like, what was your moment before? What is your expectations? What are your tactics with? Because usually it's their want, right? Like I want to have
Yeah.
a conversation with my boss about a raise. There's your
Hmm.
instant conflict, right? So
Yeah.
then something's got to happen that upsets their expectations.
Hmm.
And they use different tactics once that happens.
Hmm.
And then there's a conclusion to the scene. Whether or not we leave whatever conflict is there unresolved, or we do resolve it, or a new problem comes about.
Hmm.
And to me, I think that as long as those formulaic things are in the scene, everyone's going to be able to chew on that, because drama is essentially the conflict, right?
Yeah,
In
for
any
sure.
genre. So if the conflict is there, I think that if I bring that to the table and I give that to the team, you can't go wrong. I think it's going to explode in front of you. And usually, I'm a lot like Clint Eastwood in the sense that we don't do a lot of takes unless we really need
Hmm.
something.
Yeah.
So, or if the actor is like adamant, like I want to go a fourth or fifth time. But for
Hmm.
me, by the second or third, I feel like we kind of hit our stride on the second or third take.
Right.
We played
Hmm.
with it. Usually in the first take, you'll notice the actor, if they didn't like it, I
Hmm.
don't even have to say anything. They're gonna throw it out. And
Yeah.
then say, let me come up with some other wants or needs or ideas or ways
Mm.
to go about this. And then all of a sudden it starts to take shape.
Yeah.
And because that formula was there of what are they actually, what's happening to them, and
Mm.
what are the other characters bringing to their journey.
Right.
So I think as long as I come into any scenario with that in terms of the scene, they're gonna pick it up, and as long as the accountability is there and we're all there to do the work and we had the magic of
Mm.
it, we're here. It's the theater stage. We're opening the curtain and it's going down.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as those essential things have been brought to the table, it's going to be awesome, and
Yeah.
that's a responsibility, you know,
It's
and to
huge.
keep the energy and
Mm-hmm.
stay accountable on your own as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So to me, I think that's my biggest thing. If I can bring those things to the team, whatever team it is, when it comes to narrative filmmaking,
Mm-hmm.
something cool is going to come out of it because they're all going to pick it up and play with it on their own, kind of like a basketball game.
Yeah. Anel, you had a question?
Okay. If I have the right book, that author's name is Larry Moss.
There we go. Yeah, Larry Moss. You
Mm-hmm.
got
Yes. And the
it.
question is not about that. I just wanted to let you know it's Larry Moss.
Yeah, you know it.
Um, uh, so when you said you don't like to do a lot of takes, now what is your camera setup? I mean, I noticed there's a new thing, or maybe not so new, but it's becoming more prevalent with the whole shot with one camera,
Oh,
start to finish, boom, done. Or do you have several cameras set up and then you piece it together in post production? Or have you tried both?
a mix of both for sure. Um,
Okay.
one interesting idea you brought up is like one of my teachers used to say, "Don't edit in your head," and I used
We
to get
tell
Nice.
all
writers that too.
I
Don't
used
do
to get
that.
irritated because I'd be like, if I don't know I'm going to cut there, then you know,
Yeah.
you know. And so sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll just know you'll kind of sense. I also kind of like to edit sometimes as I go, like edit the
Mhm.
movie,
Mm.
so I kind of know if we're missing something,
Yeah.
or if there's
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, like there's a setup and we need the payoff. I'll definitely you kind of know what you need and what you don't need. But sometimes
Mm.
Right.
another interesting aspect of the camera choices, like you're saying, and setups is how does it impact the cast? So
Mm.
Uh-huh.
I'll if it's really serious, like we're at the climactic moment, they're arguing, something's about to
Mhm.
happen, someone's about to attack the other person, or they're about to be told that they're never gonna be in their lives again. I think sometimes you need to let them play through the whole thing. Let them do it. Let them
Yeah.
experience each up and down, and you have to just run through the whole take. And you got to give them a
Mm-hmm.
couple goes, like two or three goes. If we need
Mhm.
to, four or five, and then we'll cut around and we'll get the reverse on whoever the other actor is, and we'll get all
Mm-hmm.
our cutaways afterwards. But
Okay.
yeah, that's a really big consideration of like, how is my shot choices impacting the rest of the team? I sometimes I don't think filmmakers think about that. They're like, no,
Yeah.
we need to get this is the game plan. But
Yeah.
sometimes like, how did that game plan impact the other people? Does
Mm-hmm.
does the actor like at the end of Double Back Boy, we were all enamored because James cried as Bruce, and he's bawling at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give anything away, but I don't, I think he kind of gave me the heads up of like, I need that whole journey of what I'm being
Sure.
told to get there,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you want me to
Right.
get there, you know?
Right.
And you have to give them that respect, that's that trust of
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
yeah, you are asking me for 15-minute takes over and over and over again, which is going to eat a lot of the day. But just like I said about capturing that light in the bottle, whatever we
Mm-hmm.
caught, gold. So
Right.
you have to say we're going to give this time investment because it's important
Mm-hmm.
to the process, or sometimes it's a montage. And I'm a pretty lax leader in terms of like I'm chill. I'm a pretty chill leader. So if we want to mess around sometimes on set and like there's some things that I didn't necessarily think about, and they want to like he's drinking this right now, or he's reading this letter in a certain way, or let's stop right here and cut this quick moment for a montage. You get happy aha moments, but you can
Mm-hmm.
also
Mhm.
get lost and be like,
Yes.
you know, what we just captured was like a 30-minute montage, and the audience does not want to watch this person traveling or
Right.
do this for 30 minutes.
No Frodo.
Exactly.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
we gotta, you have
and
to,
we're walking.
hone in on what strategy is
Yeah.
it are these big moments that they have to know about what's going on in this montage, then we have to stay
Mm,
strict and say, if we don't get it, we walk away not really having a scene,
yeah.
and that's counterintuitive. But having a little bit of fun sometimes
Mm.
it's not bad.
So
So
sometimes you,
my mentor and Donnell, who's my editor, we use a phrase that you have to make every word count. Every word has to be there for a reason. And
Good.
so if that word doesn't, if that word or words that you're using doesn't fit in there, or if it just kind of goes off, like you have to learn to cut, maybe not edit, but you have to learn to be concise. And so sometimes that's necessary, I think, with even with art too, because if we start overthinking it, then, paint starts to get muddy and colors start to blend in and it's too much. You're not seeing the picture. And sometimes minimalism is the best way to go with it. So, it's interesting that you can apply those to filmmaking as well. So I think it's pretty cool that the way you explained it is also giving the actors free reign, but again, don't overthink it. Like,
No,
be in the moment, understand the moment, and then understand how to deliver it at the same time. Yeah.
right.
throw the spaghetti at the wall and see if it sticks.
Yes. And the big one to me, I think that we can all can tell when the actor doesn't commit.
Sure.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
you said, what do I contribute as coach? Sometimes
Mhm.
it's going over there and having a conversation, and you can't talk about
Mhm.
it exactly. I can't be like,
Right.
hey, this is happening, and we all kind of know, because everyone
Yeah.
can sense it when they're watching the take. You got to go have a
Sure.
conversation with them and maybe ground the idea, and
Yeah.
ask them questions like, I'll bring it real personal. I'm gonna try and think of an idea, but like, if you're like, two friends aren't getting along.
Sure.
I might go over there and just ground it in reality. Have you ever been in a
Mm.
moment where you and your friend you guys are not doing well, and
Mm-hmm.
you're pissed at them, they're pissed at you, you feel sad about it? How
Yeah.
did that make you feel? What
Mm.
did what were your reactions in those moments? How did you talk to people? Were you down? Uh,
Yeah.
were you desperate for that connection again? What do you think is going on in that scenario? Then all of a sudden you walk
Mm.
away and they're like, oh, well, those things make me feel this. And they're thinking about that feeling instead of thinking of, if I raise my eyebrow right now, do I look cool?
Mm.
The lights on me right
Or
here.
you look like doofus.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta get them out of
It
their
looked
head
like,
and say, grounded in some reality of these feelings that this person's going through.
Yeah.
So
mhm.
that's a great, yeah, you have to cut down, trim the fat and say what's really going on.
Mm.
But that can be done in a way that's collaborative too, by
Right.
having that
Yeah.
conversation around, have you ever been in this moment? And if not,
Mm.
what would they be feeling in this moment?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what do you think? It's like,
Yeah,
punch them in the face, or are you gonna walk
exactly.
away?
Yeah, and you put it
Right.
that way, they might get rid of the funny one and the bizarre one instantly out of their mind, and they're like, "Oh, you're
Mm.
right. I just need to keep this simple."
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great way of looking at it.
I know that you mentioned that you like documentaries. Is there a documentarist? Is that a word? It is now. A documentarist that you actually like, he's like your favorite, he or she is your favorite, that you just can't get enough. Like anything they put out, you watch.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't I just look for the content, like whatever I don't actually
Mm.
look for the filmmaker. So for
Yeah.
me, I'm deep diving on some idea.
Yeah.
Um, like my new movie is called Cyborg Recall, and this college master's degree student wins a sweepstakes to go into a VR game.
Hmm.
When he's in the VR game, he starts to question which reality is real.
Nice.
And I
Ah,
thought that I knew enough about that. You know, it's the funny part when you're an artist, you're like, I don't know. I'll just sit down.
I got I
Yeah.
got
So
nah.
then,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and then I got onto a bunch of documentaries about simulation theory, and it was amazing
Yeah.
on how much that fed into what the character must be feeling. And
Hmm.
each documentary was different. Someone took at it like a negative connotation towards it. Someone was like, "We're in an alternate reality," and they were a little
Sure.
more passionate about it. And to me,
Yeah.
when you just don't know anything about it, and you're just giving me your video essay about this topic, I'm
Hmm.
basically like studying for the assignment, and I'm
Right.
taking some gold.
Hmm.
I often do that. I'll pan for the gold out of certain situations. Even my
Yeah.
mentors, I'll have a mentor. They'll tell me one thing, and I sat down in a coaching with an associate one time with my manager, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
I'm never doing this. I'm never doing
Right.
what this asked me to do.
Hmm. But you
That's
got something out of it,
yes,
and
right.
that's the point.
Yes,
right?
maybe like conflict resolution. I was like, oh, there's a good
Sure.
little nugget. You
Yeah,
know, maybe it wouldn't start the way you started, or like. But to
right,
me, I think that's what I'm doing when I'm making the movie. Is like what pieces that I'm finding out of all this research belongs in this world that's this
right.
movie, and then it starts to take shape, and you start to understand the idea more. Like it when you're able to be on set and say these drugs that these characters are selling in Duffel Bag Boy are, everyone's addicted to candy or caffeine or Starbucks.
Hmm.
You make it real and you say, okay, these people are just in the middle of a transaction, and whatever they have, they're not sitting there going, oh my gosh, these are narcotics.
Yeah,
They're like, I'm here for work. That's what we talked about in a lot of those
yeah.
scenes. I used to tell them, do you like clocking in as your regular job? And they're
Hmm.
like, no. And I'm like, sometimes I don't think that these gangsters like clocking in for their job either. Like, I gotta come here. He yells at me
They
about
don't.
numbers.
Yeah.
I gotta sell these drugs. I have X amount of hours to do it. This sucks.
It's like having children. Like
Yeah.
that's how they look at it. They're like these damn kids and
Yes.
these crackheads and these drug
Yeah,
addicts. They
exactly.
really don't want to be there, but they're like, just give me your damn money. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I raised my quota.
Yes, exactly. And that research starts to pull up some of those ideas that you can talk with the crew about and
Sure.
help build the world for them about the movie and what these
Yeah.
characters.
What's your
Yeah.
favorite part about doing research?
The possibilities.
Like
That's
learning something, you're like, I can't wait to learn something new.
yes,
It's like, oh,
yes,
wow, I didn't know that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Or what direction is it going to go in? Like
Yeah.
Right.
you take on an idea of like a game. The video game world. It's so vast.
Hmm.
Hmm.
What starts to fall away and become this world that this character's in. But when I look at it, I'm like, we're talking about video games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that to me is the fun part. It gets me. It's that spark that
Hmm.
I get
I'm
excited. Go ahead.
okay. So I'm like that with video games. Okay. Because like my grandkids, they're like really into Fortnite right now.
Oh yeah.
And my son started letting the older ones play Halo.
Okay. Cool.
And so they're like, "Oh, so it's about that." I was like, "Dude, I know. I don't play it, but I know." Because
Yeah.
when my son started playing, like, some of these video games, I'm like, "What you doing?" And I would sit and I would watch him play. I'm so weird. And instead of answering me because he'd be, like, really intense, he would as soon as he could, he'd reach down, grab the guidebook with the story in it, the
Oh
write-up and the plot and the whole
yeah.
background of it, and he'd just hold it like this behind his head.
Yeah.
And, "Here, read it." And so I just started reading about it, and then I'll go on, like, Wiki or I'll go on their website, and I'll be, like, reading all this
Oh
lore
yeah.
and the
Hmm.
world building, and, people are like, "You're kidding." I'm like, "No, I admire the
Hmm.
artwork, the music." I will
Right.
listen to the musical score from Call of Duty,
Oh,
Halo, and Assassin's Creed,
oh, all day.
Hmm. All
all
day.
day. I mean,
Just don't hand me the controller.
oh, I don't
I
have the
watch it
hand-eye
as a
coordination. I'm like, "Man, I
cinematic
will die."
experience.
Yeah, I've been
I
on
will
both
watch
ends. I've
people.
been the hardcore gamer, and now I'm sort of like I'm grounded in the reality, but I still kind of peek over to the side, It's like that meme where the guy's walking with the girl and he's like looking
Yeah.
aside.
I mean,
That's me with the
I'll
video
look at
games
it.
because I was in that world, whether it was tabletop, whether it was like online role playing, whether it was like WoW or Diablo
Mhm.
Neverwinter, things like that. We were so involved in it. But I think part of, like I said, it all comes back to the connection, right?
Mhm.
And how it connects with the audience. And you know, uh, gaming can be really dark. It can
Oh
be
yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
dark, where people
And
lose like
addictive.
yeah,
They
well,
lose a
like
sense of
the
self.
virtual gamer, right? It can be really, really dark where people lose, like you were saying, lose that sense of which one is the reality. That's a really real thing
Yeah.
that happens. And sometimes it happened a lot in Japan where a lot of the gamers they just went on because so listen, we call it like we call them farmers, right? So we have the Japanese and we have the Chinese farmers, and that's not being racist. That's really what they're called on the game. So this is not me, guys. This is just what they're called in the game. And so when they go into it, that's their whole life. They get paid for that. They support their families on that. And they literally, that's their job. They wake up, they go to school, they come back, and the first thing they do is hop on that game, and then they're up all hours of the night and they're making lots of money doing it. But then it becomes to the point where they start isolating themselves because that world, they have control. That world, they have everything that they want. They're a millionaire. They've
Right.
got friends. They're popular. They don't have to worry about whether they're awkward in public or, socializing. That becomes their entire world. And so I'm really interested in where you go with that because there's, like you said, there's so many possibilities with it. And it could be dark and it can be light. It could be whatever happens, a roll of dice, honestly, how you're wired, I think,
Oh yeah.
Can you lose your sense of self? Not just like,
Yes,
what's real, but just like a sense of who
yes,
you are?
yes,
I think
So it's a good
absolutely.
thing I never get into playing because
Yes,
that is a me thing. I would,
yeah.
oh yeah.
No,
People have
honestly,
actually
nope, I would.
dissociated. They have
Mhm,
yes,
starved to
I
death,
will.
had
yes.
malnutrition. There
Starve their
are
I
children.
should
extreme
say. I should
cases.
say.
Oh
It's
yeah.
likely I would become like that, but I have a
There
good
are,
group of
that's
friends
why I
that
watch them.
yeah,
And
I watch other people play.
I'm not an addictive personality person, but I am terrified of
Mhm,
losing myself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I get
I'm
that.
just now
So
finding
I don't
myself. I don't need to
game,
lose it.
I don't allow myself those kind of immersions
Hmm.
Mhm,
because that's to me that triggers there's a boundary that I could cross that I never
Sure.
want to go near crossing.
Yeah, I get
Right.
My sense
Absolutely.
of self and identity is so
mhm,
strong that I don't want to adopt another and maybe find it more pleasurable.
right.
My life
Yeah.
is not a cosplay, and
Hmm.
that's
mhm.
really, really important to me
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good
personally.
point.
I have an obsessive personality as it is,
Right.
and I tend to be impulsive. So yeah, me and video games, I'll just read them.
It's
Yeah,
I was
safer.
excited when I
it
learned there were
is.
what was it? Warhammer books and
Yeah.
Halo
Hmm.
books. I
Oh
was like,
yeah. Yeah,
my
yeah.
little
Yeah.
geeky heart was like, yes, I can get in that world without losing
Yeah.
myself in that world.
Yeah.
Totally understand.
It's
I
with
wrote
everything.
for role-playing games, and we saw players who lost touch,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
Mm-mm.
there were actual
They
vampire
really think,
murders based on the
yes,
game that I
they
wrote, and
actually think they're
that
vampires.
keeps
Yep.
us awake at night
Sure.
still, and that happened in the 90s.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
That, it's a really
There's a documentary about that.
that's awesome. Yeah. See,
Yes,
that's
there
great
is,
research.
and
Yes. Hmm.
we live with that.
Yeah.
And the game creators definitely have a conscience about that, and it really bothers
Mhm.
us.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I
It
agree.
really, yeah. So I'm really curious to see where you're going to take the idea of the
Mhm.
singularity and the video game
Yeah.
Hmm.
and merge it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what your vision comes up with it.
I'm
Mm.
excited.
I have a
Okay,
question.
hold on. So let's back up because we kind of went way off track. So we're gonna go here
Yeah,
and
we did.
we're gonna wrap it up here really soon because we kept this poor guest with us for like 2 hours.
Really?
Oh,
So my
he's really
question for you,
defrosted now.
yeah, I know, right?
Well, his only way out is death. So
You're part of the family now.
Yeah.
So my question to you then is, if you couldn't do this, couldn't make films for the rest of your life, what would you do? He's like, okay, I'm done.
Tap out.
die.
Gosh, I don't know if I've tried a lot of different art. So like
Mhm.
writing, music. When I was 17, my dad will have a fun time telling this story if ever gets a chance, but I made my own little rap album and I like
What's his phone number? We'll
Nice.
give him a call.
I know. And I used to sell the CDs out of the trunk of a
Nice.
car. Yeah,
Yeah.
I even got kicked out from by some like real gangsters. They're like, you can't sell your stuff here. This is where we sell it. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, I can't just hang out to people." But so
Move
yeah,
along.
for me, art is from the very beginning with painting to writing to music. I don't know. I think I might like be interested in working in the game world, like making video games, maybe like
Okay.
cinematics,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
or
cool.
being an author, like writing things. Although I don't know, now you say that, I'll miss that going from the page to the screen.
Yeah.
That's tough. Maybe
Yeah.
animation.
Adapted from a book by.
Or maybe just be like stage, like, plays or something.
Yeah,
There you
that'd be
go.
awesome. Yeah, live
Mhm.
plays. Gosh.
Yeah.